Lisa Martinez stood at her security station on the bridge of the Meridian, watching the stars drift by through the main viewport. The research vessel had been mapping the outer edges of the Carina Nebula for 3 weeks now, and she was starting to miss the excitement of her previous posting. As Chief Security Officer, her job lately consisted mainly of running routine scans and checking the cargo holds for any signs of equipment failure. The soft blue glow of her console. Daniel Carter was deep in the engineering section when the alert came through. His hands were covered in coolant fluid as he worked on routine maintenance, but he immediately noticed when the lights shifted to a subtle shade of amber. Someone had tried to breach the ship's systems. He wiped his hands clean and moved to the nearest console, watching as lines of code scrolled past. The Zexteri's attempts to hack their systems were sophisticated, but they had no idea what they were dealing with. Daniel allowed himself a small smile as he initiated Protocol Labyrinth. Up in the medical bay, the first signs that something was wrong came when First Speaker Vental requested to use the bathroom. Lisa Martinez pointed him toward the nearest facilities, maintaining her professional demeanor. The alien leader walked down the corridor, but stopped after a few steps. He looked left, then right, his vertical pupils widening in confusion. "Is there a problem?" Lisa asked innocently. This is not the same corridor we walked through moments ago," Vental said, his throat sacs pulsing rapidly. He was right. The hallway that had led straight to the bathroom now curved slightly to the left. The doors were spaced differently, and the lighting had shifted to a deeper shade of blue. Lisa watched as the alien pulled out his scanning device, his webbed fingers trembling slightly. Down in engineering, Daniel's fingers flew over his console as he coordinated with the ship's systems. The Meridian wasn't just changing its layout. It was adapting, learning from the intruder's movements. Each time the Zexteri tried to map their surroundings, the ship would subtly alter its internal structure. One of the other aliens, who had been quietly working on a small device, suddenly let out a gurgling cry of alarm. First Speaker, "Our scanning equipment, it shows 3 different and conflicting layouts. This is impossible." Lisa stepped back, letting the aliens discover the full extent of their situation. The Meridian's corridors were slowly but surely shifting around them, creating a maze that changed with each step they took. Their sophisticated scanning equipment was worse than useless. It was driving them into confusion. "What is this trickery?" Vental demanded, his earlier diplomatic tone replaced by fear. "Our scans showed this was a simple research vessel." "Oh, it is a research vessel." Daniel's voice came through the comm system. "Just not a simple one. You really should have done more research about human ships before trying to hack one." The aliens grouped together, their backs to each other as they watched the corridors continue to shift. The walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, which wasn't far from the truth. Daniel had always thought it was funny how other species built their ships like machines, when humans had learned long ago that the best technology was the kind that could think for itself. "You don't understand," Vental said, his voice shaking. "We must complete our mission. The collective demands it." He pulled out what was clearly a weapon, but before he could aim it, the floor beneath him tilted slightly. Not enough to throw him down, just enough to make him stumble. The ceiling panels dimmed and brightened in a wave-like pattern, disorienting the alien's sensitive eyes. Lisa didn't even need to draw her own weapon. The ship was doing all the work for her. She watched as the Zexteri's confidence crumbled, replaced by growing panic as they realized they were trapped inside a living maze. Daniel's voice came through again, this time with a hint of amusement. "You know what's really interesting about human ships? We don't just build them. We grow them. And right now, you're inside something that's very much alive and very unhappy about your hacking attempt." One of the aliens tried to run, only to find that the corridor he chose led right back to where he started. Another attempted to use some kind of cutting tool on the wall, but the material simply absorbed the energy and reformed, stronger than before. Vental finally dropped his weapon, his proud posture collapsing. "Please," he said, "we surrender. Let us return to our ship." "Oh, we'll let you leave," Lisa said calmly. "But first, you're going to tell us everything about this collective of yours, and why they're so interested in human vessels. And trust me, the ship will know if you're lying." The walls pulsed again, as if in agreement, and the Zexteri could only stare in horror at what they had thought would be an easy target. Catherine Wright sat at her station on the bridge, watching streams of alien communications flow across her screen. As the Meridian's AI specialist and tactical advisor, she had been monitoring deep space transmissions ever since their encounter with the Zexteri 3 days ago. What she found made her sit up straight. "Captain," she called out to Peter Walsh, "you need to see this." The captain moved to her station, leaning over her shoulder to look at the decoded messages. The alien chatter was reaching a fever pitch. Word of the Zexteri's failed boarding attempt had spread through the galactic networks like wildfire. "They're calling us ghost ships now," Catherine said, pointing to one particular message thread. "Look at this. There are reports coming in from all over. Other human vessels have had similar encounters with would-be raiders. The aliens are starting to warn each other about us." On the main screen, she pulled up a star chart showing recent ship movements. 5 alien vessels had changed course in the last hour alone, all of them moving away from the Meridian's position. Lisa Martinez joined them at the tactical station. "Good. Maybe they'll think twice before trying to board us again." "It's not that simple," Catherine said, frowning at her screen. "I'm picking up encrypted transmissions from what seems to be high-level military channels. They're not just afraid. They're curious. They want to know how our ships work." The captain scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Show me what you found in the Zexteri's data core." Catherine pulled up the files they'd recovered. The aliens had been collecting information on human vessels for months. Their notes showed confusion about why scans could never get consistent readings of human ship interiors. One report described a failed boarding attempt where the raiders got lost in corridors that moved like living things. "Remember the Earth-Centauri trade routes?" Catherine asked. The sudden drop in piracy attacks wasn't because of increased patrols. The pirates just learned to stay away from human ships. A new alert flashed on her screen. 3 more vessels had appeared on long-range sensors, trying to look casual as they followed the Meridian at a distance. Catherine could tell from their energy signatures that they were recording everything they could. "The Zexteri mentioned a collective," Lisa said. "What have you found about them?" Catherine pulled up another file. "They're a group of advanced species who share technology and resources. They've been watching us ever since we started expanding into deep space. Our ships don't make sense to them. They can't understand why their most advanced scanning technology can't get a clear reading of our vessel layouts. Because they're looking for machine patterns," Daniel Carter's voice came through the comm system from engineering. "They expect rigid structures, fixed corridors, normal mechanical systems. They don't understand that our ships are partly alive." Catherine nodded, even though Daniel couldn't see her. She remembered her first days working with ship eyes, learning how humans had discovered the strange, spaceborne organisms that could be grown and shaped into living vessels. The aliens' confusion was understandable. They were looking for technology, not biology. A new message caught her attention, making her breath catch. "Captain, the collective, they're calling an emergency summit. The topic is human vessels and the potential threat they pose to galactic security." The captain straightened up. "Threat? We're not the ones trying to board their ships." "No," Catherine said quietly, "but think about it from their perspective. We have ships that can change their internal layout at will, that can trap boarders in living mazes, that seem to have minds of their own. And now they're realizing that every human ship they've encountered has these same capabilities." Lisa checked her security screens. "We've got more company. 2 more vessels just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're keeping their distance, but they're definitely watching us." "Let them watch," the captain said firmly. "But Catherine, keep monitoring those communications. If they're calling a summit about us, we need to know what they're planning." Catherine turned back to her console, diving deeper into the alien transmissions. The secret of human ships was out, and she needed to understand how the galaxy would react to this revelation. Alan Pierce stood in his medical bay, staring at the samples under his microscope. As the Meridian's chief medical officer, he had spent years studying the unique biology of human ships, but he never stopped being amazed by what he saw. The cell samples from the corridor walls were actively changing, responding to the stress of the recent alien intrusion. "Fascinating," he muttered, making notes on his tablet. "The ship's tissue is creating new neural pathways. It's learning from the experience." The door chimed, and Captain Walsh entered the medical bay. "Dr. Pierce, what have you found?" Alan gestured to his microscope. "See for yourself, Captain. The ship's biological systems are adapting. Those Zexteri didn't just trigger our defenses, they helped our ship evolve." The captain leaned over the microscope, though Alan knew he probably couldn't make sense of the complex cellular structures. "Explain it to me in simple terms, Doctor." "Think of it like an immune system," Alan said, pulling up a diagram on the main screen. "When the aliens tried to hack our systems, the ship recognized them as a threat. But instead of just fighting back, it studied them. Now it's changing its own structure to better resist similar attacks in the future." A soft pulse ran through the floor beneath their feet, as if the ship was acknowledging their conversation. Alan had always found it comforting how the vessel responded to its crew's presence. The aliens found it terrifying, but to him, it felt like having a loyal, protected friend. "The Zexteri kept asking how we control the ship's changes," the captain said. "They couldn't understand why their scanning equipment showed different results every time." Ellen smiled. "Because they're thinking like engineers, not doctors. Look here." He pointed to another screen showing the ship's neural network. "The Meridian doesn't just change randomly. It responds to our emotions, our stress levels, even our body chemistry. When Lisa felt threatened by the boarders, the ship sensed her anxiety and began shifting its corridors before she even called for help." The captain watched as lines of bioelectrical activity flowed through the ship's systems like blood through veins. "And the aliens can't copy this technology." "They could try," Alan said, shaking his head, "but it wouldn't work. The organisms we use to grow our ships were discovered in Earth's deep oceans. They naturally form symbiotic relationships with other life forms. We didn't invent this technology. We formed a partnership with it." A alert sounded from his computer. Alan checked the readings and raised his eyebrows. "Well, this is new. The tissue samples from where the aliens tried to cut through the wall. They've developed a crystalline structure that would deflect energy weapons. The ship is armoring itself. More than that, it's sharing the adaptation through its whole structure. The next time someone tries to cut through our walls," the captain nodded slowly, "they'll find it even harder than the Zexteri did." Helen turned to another screen showing the ship's vital signs. To him, the Meridian was as much a living being as any of its crew. The aliens saw it as a mysterious threat, but they missed the most important thing. Human ships protected their crews not because they were programmed to, but because they chose to. "There's something else," Alan said, pulling up a new set of readings. "The ship's neural activity spikes whenever we pass those alien vessels that are following us. It's not just defending against threats anymore. It's actively watching for them." The captain looked concerned. "Is that dangerous?" "No," Alan said confidently. "The ship's primary function is still protection, not aggression. But it's learning to anticipate threats rather than just react to them. In a way, it's becoming more human." A gentle vibration ran through the medical bay, and the lights dimmed slightly before returning to normal. Alan smiled again. The ship had its own way of expressing agreement. "Have you shared any of this with our guests in the break?" the captain asked. "No," Alan replied. "I don't think the Zexteri are ready to understand. To them, a ship is a tool, a machine to be controlled. They can't grasp the idea of a vessel that's truly alive, that thinks and feels and grows alongside its crew." The captain touched the wall gently, feeling the subtle warmth that always emanated from the living tissue. Maybe it's better that way. Let them fear what they don't understand. As long as that fear keeps them from trying to board human ships, it's doing its job. Susan Morgan watched the alien delegates file into the emergency summit through her view screen. As the Meridian's diplomatic officer, she had been chosen to represent humanity at this hastily arranged meeting. The massive space station where the summit was being held buzzed with nervous energy as species from across the galaxy gathered to discuss the human ship situation. The Zexteri delegation sat far from her, their scales dulled with shame after their failed boarding attempt had sparked this crisis. Species she had never seen before filled the circular chamber, their translators humming as they whispered among themselves. "The summit will now begin," announced a tall, crystalline being that served as the meeting's neutral moderator. "We are here to address the growing concerns about human vessel technology." Susan straightened in her chair, keeping her face calm. Through her neural link to the Meridian, she could feel the ship's gentle reassurance even from this distance. The living vessels always maintained a connection to their crew, no matter how far apart they were. An insectoid alien stepped forward, its antennae twitching. 3 cycles ago, our scout ships attempted to inspect a human cargo vessel. The ship's interior changed shape, trapping our inspection team for 2 full rotations. They emerged, changed. More species began sharing similar stories. A gaseous being described how their most advanced scanning technology had failed to map human ship layouts. A reptilian trader admitted that their piracy prevention units now avoided human space entirely. "The humans are hiding something dangerous," a Zexteri representative finally spoke up. "Their ships are not natural. They are a threat to galactic security." Susan waited for the murmurs to die down before standing. "What you call unnatural, we call partnership. Our ships are alive. Yes, they protect us because they choose to, not because we force them to." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The crystalline moderator had to flash bright pulses of light to restore order. A wise-looking alien with flowing tendrils asked, "You expect us to believe you discovered such organisms by chance, that they just happen to be perfect for space travel?" Susan activated a small holoprojector. "Let me show you something from Earth's history." The image showed the deep oceans of Earth, where the first ship organisms had been discovered. In the darkest parts of our oceans, we found creatures that could form living colonies that could change their shape to survive crushing pressures and harsh environments. We didn't create our ships. We learned from them, grew with them. The Zexteri leader's throat sacs pulsed with agitation. "Then why do they attack boarders?" "Attack?" Susan shook her head. "Our ships have never killed anyone. They protect their crews the same way your body protects itself from harm. The corridors shift to contain threats, not to harm them." Another delegate, a being of pure energy contained in a mechanical suit, moved forward. "We have analyzed records of all human vessel encounters. In every case, the ships showed remarkable restraint. They trap, redirect, and confuse, but never kill." Susan nodded. "Because they're not weapons. They're living beings who have chosen to help us explore space. Yes, they defend themselves and their crews. Wouldn't you do the same?" The chamber grew quiet as the delegates considered this. Susan could feel the Meridian's presence in her mind, its calm strength helping her stay focused. "We propose," the crystalline moderator finally said, "that human vessels be declared restricted zones. No non-human boarding without explicit permission and human escort." "We accept," Susan said simply. "We've never wanted conflict. We only want to explore and trade in peace." As the delegates began discussing the formal details, Susan felt the Meridian's satisfaction through their link. The ship had known all along that understanding would come not through force, but through truth. Captain Peter Walsh stood on the bridge of the Meridian, watching the growing fleet of alien vessels gathering at the edge of human space. Despite Susan's diplomatic efforts of the summit, several species had broken away from the main Galactic Council, demanding that humans share their ship technology or face isolation. 27 ships now, sir, Lisa Martinez reported from her security station. Most of them appear to be warships from the collective. Peter felt the subtle vibration of the Meridian's hull. Not fear, but readiness. In the weeks since the Zexteri incident, the ship had grown more responsive, more aware. Through the neural link all human captains shared with their vessels, he sensed its determination to protect its crew. Message from Earth Command. Catherine Wright announced from her communication station. Other human ships are reporting similar gatherings at different border points. The collective is trying to surround us. Daniel Carter's voice came through from engineering. Captain, you need to see this. The ship's biological systems are doing something new. Peter made his way to engineering, where Daniel stood before a wall display showing the Meridian's neural network. The usual patterns of blue light that represented the ship's nervous system now pulsed with streaks of gold. It started when the alien fleet arrived, Daniel explained. At first, I thought it was just our ship. But look. He pulled up data from other human vessels. They're all showing the same changes. The ships are communicating with each other. How is that possible? Peter asked, watching the golden pulses sink across multiple vessels. They're light years apart. Quantum entanglement. Alan Pierce said, joining them in engineering. The organisms we used to grow our ships were always connected to each other, even across vast distances. We just never saw it activate on this scale before. The ship shuddered slightly, and new data flowed across the screens. Peter felt a surge of emotion through his neural link, not just from the Meridian, but faint echoes from other vessels too. The ships weren't just defending individual crews anymore. They were coordinating to protect all of humanity. Back on the bridge, Lisa's console lit up with alerts. Sir, the alien fleet is moving. They're taking up attack positions. All hands to stations. Peter ordered, returning to the bridge. But weapons remain silent. We're not starting a war today. Through the main viewport, he watched the alien ships spread out in a classic attack formation. Their weapons powered up, energy signatures blazing across the tactical display. Then something extraordinary happened. The golden pulse they had seen in engineering spread across the Meridian's hull, visible now to the alien fleet. One by one, other human ships in nearby sectors began to glow with the same light, creating a network of luminous vessels. They're scanning us, Catherine reported. Every ship in their fleet is trying to analyze the energy pattern. Peter felt the Meridian's response through their link. The ship wasn't afraid. It was ready to show the aliens exactly what they were dealing with. Sir, Lisa said, her voice filled with awe, the ship's defensive capabilities are evolving. These readings, I've never seen anything like this. The alien fleet's formation wavered. Their scans must have shown them something that made them hesitate. Through the neural link, Peter sensed what the Meridian was doing. It wasn't preparing to fight. It was preparing to demonstrate why fighting would be pointless. They're sending a transmission, Catherine announced. The collective. They're requesting a new diplomatic channel. They say they've detected something in our ship's energy patterns that they've seen before in ancient records of the first spacefaring races. Peter smiled slightly. The ships had known all along that this confrontation would end not in battle, but in understanding. Sometimes, the best way to prevent a war was to show your strength while choosing not to use it. Lisa Martinez stood beside Susan Morgan as they welcomed the alien delegation aboard the Meridian. This time, there were no hidden weapons, no secret scanning devices. The ship's golden glow had changed everything, leading to this moment of true first contact. Welcome aboard, Susan said to the diverse group of alien representatives. Among them were the crystalline moderator from the summit, several members of the collective, and even a humbled Zexteri observer. The aliens noticed immediately that the corridors weren't shifting or changing. Instead, the walls pulsed with a gentle, welcoming light. Through their neural links, the crew could feel the Meridian's curiosity about these visitors who had finally come in peace. Your ships, the crystalline being said, its facets reflecting the golden light. They are like the ancient ones described in our oldest records. living vessels that crossed the galaxy long before any of our civilizations reached the stars. Alan Pierce stepped forward with his research data. We've compared the genetic structure of our ship organisms to the records you shared. The match is remarkable. The creatures we found in Earth's oceans are descendants of those ancient space travelers. Catherine Wright joined them, adding, "When our ships began communicating with each other, they weren't just coordinating defense. They were remembering. The knowledge of their ancestors was locked in their genetic code all along." The alien delegates followed them to the medical bay, where Alan had prepared a demonstration. On a large screen, he showed the cellular structure of the ship's tissue transforming and adapting. "The golden energy you saw," Alan explained, "was the ships accessing their ancestral memory. They recognize your species, all of you, from encounters their ancestors had millions of years ago." A Zexteri scientist moved closer to the display, their vertical pupils wide with wonder. "Then they were never weapons. They were trying to communicate with us all along. Every time they trapped borders," Daniel Carter said from his engineering station, "they were actually trying to keep them still long enough to establish a connection. But fear and aggression made that impossible." Through the ship's neural network, the crew felt the Meridian's agreement. The walls hummed with a deeper tone, and suddenly every alien in the room gasped. They could feel it too, a faint echo of the ship's consciousness, reaching out to them, just as it had reached out to its human crew years ago. "This is how it began with us," Captain Walsh explained, joining the group. "The ships chose humanity not because we were special, but because we were willing to listen, to form a partnership instead of trying to control them." Susan stepped forward again. "And that's what we're offering now. Not our technology, because it isn't technology at all. We're offering a chance for your species to form your own relationships with these remarkable beings." The crystalline moderator's surface rippled with emotion. "You would share this gift. It was never ours to keep," Lisa said softly. "The ships exist in every ocean on every living world. They've been waiting for all of us to be ready." The Meridian's golden glow brightened, and through their neural link, the crew felt its joy at finally being understood. The ship had known this moment would come, had been preparing for it since the first human crew discovered their kind in Earth's deepest trenches. One by one, the alien delegates stepped forward to place their hands on the living walls. Each felt something different, a welcome, a memory, a promise of friendship that transcended the boundaries of species and space. Peter Walsh smiled as he watched ancient fears melt away into understanding. The secret that had made every species fear boarding human ships wasn't a weapon or a threat. It was simply the truth that some of the greatest mysteries in the galaxy had been waiting patiently in the depths of every living world, ready to help all species reach for the stars together.